Being 7:02, I'm going to call the meeting of the Clinton Board of Selectmen for August 12th to order. First item on the agenda is public comment. Does anyone have any public comment? You, sir. Yep, you just want to come up, state your name and...
Yes, yeah. My name is Ben Giordano. I'm with the Liberty Compassion, also Affinity. We've been here before. I just wanted to provide a quick update on our business and pass out a flyer. We're actually looking to hire a bunch of people.
Great.
I thought this would be a good community. You're giving us a host community agreement and allow us to operate in the town, which I appreciate. Just wanted to give you some stats. Recently, the last time we were there, we try to say what we do what we say. We actually have employed 42 people now. About 20% of those are from Clinton. The majority of them are regional, and I have another 6 that are actually have been hired, but they're not on board yet. As you know, cannabis is a complicated onboarding process. We are having a job fair. I still need more people, and that's really the gating factor for our growth. So on Friday of next week, I have a flyer and some job descriptions that I could leave with the town manager.
Sure.
So next Friday in our parking lot, we need to hire another 18 people. So I just wanted to come and provide that information to you and say thank you for it as operating your town. And you know, you get 3% of everything that comes out of the factory, and we're both happy if we do well.
Great. Great.
All right, that's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Swan. Thank you so much.
Jeff Swan, 132 Franklin Street. I just wanted to stop by and thank you for the Selectmen and Mr. Ward for allowing Civic, the group that I'm one of the co-founders of, Concerned Informed Voters Collaborative, for allowing us use of the hall last night for the primary debate. It went very well, and we do expect to come back after the primary and ask again if we can borrow the hall, as we will have a final debate between the 3 actual candidates running for the slot. So again, my appreciation for your allowing us the use, and I look forward to coming back and asking once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comments? Please.
My name is Marty Reisner from the William Reisner Corporation here in Clinton on 33 Elm Street. So I'm here tonight because until this afternoon, I was unaware that there was a voting issue concerning Wadaquatic Hill and the proposed vote to bar trailer traffic on that road. And so I didn't even know about it. So I don't even know if it was publicly advertised. I don't know if the other businesses in Clinton have had the opportunity to be here tonight, if there was a public notice to notify them, because if tractor trailer traffic is barred on that particular road, it's going to do, I'm not being over dramatic, it's going to have a severe negative impact to the redevelopment of the William Reisner Corporation on Elm Street. Now, over the past, it's going on 3.5 years now, all the effort has been to redevelop the property into, a business that can, produce income and raise the tax basis, because right now the tax basis is in the tubes because it's not being rented, it's not being used. So, right now as we speak, I'm marketing the property as a intermodal, as a distribution facility that can utilize the rail access that's there, utilize all the different routes, including Wadaquatic Hill, to get to 495 north and south, to, and tens of thousands of dollars have gone into this effort. So I am asking, the board tonight to consider that. I didn't know about it. If I didn't know about it, I would have, engaged, engineers, an attorney, or try to find out where it even started from, because I'm ignorant towards the issue. So, and if it wasn't publicly advertised, I feel you have a responsibility to notify all the businesses in town so we can see how it's going to impact us. And, you know, maybe there should be an impact study of some sorts, because it's going to affect us and our ability to redevelop the property. So that's my public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Does he know what we're talking about, right? He wants to stick around. All right, next item on the agenda, review of minutes for July 15th, 2020. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented, Mr. Chairman?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Next item is a liquor license public hearing for 175 Sterling Street, Mass Brewery LLC, doing business as Sterling Street Brewery. The party's here. Welcome. Welcome to Clinton.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good.
So good evening. My name is Jesse Tarbell. This is my business partner, Brian Mason, and as you said, we're the owners of Sterling Street Brewery, located at 175 Sterling Street here in Clinton. And we're here tonight to seek approval from the board to obtain our Farmers Series pouring permit, 19C. In order to operate in the manner in which we plan to operate our business, there are 3 licenses that we need to acquire. 2 we've already acquired. The first is a brewer's notice from the TTB, which gives us the ability to manufacture beer, craft beer, on site. The second is a farmer's brewery license, which we obtained from the ABCC, which gives us the ability to sell our manufactured beer for off-site consumption. The third and final, as I mentioned, is the farmer's brewer's pouring permit, 19C, which gives us the ability to sell our beer for on-site consumption. I want to make it very clear that this is not a liquor license. It has nothing to do with the town's number of liquor licenses. It's a completely separate animal. We are not a bar. We're a tap room. We have about 4,000 square feet. 1,500 of that is for production to brew our beer. The other 2,500 is for a tap room, very family friendly. You know, we're not a bar that's going to be open till 1 or 2 in the morning. At the most, probably 10, 10:30. Limited hours throughout the week. We're not open Monday, Tuesdays, things like that. So essentially what we're looking for is to work with the town in conjunction with the ABCC to get that third and final permit.
This being a public hearing, is there anyone here to speak in favor of the proposal? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Hearing none, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing. It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant the pouring license for the I forget the name of the enterprise, but
Sterling
the
Street Brewery.
requested.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion or questions from the board? No, I'm glad you're here and wish you nothing but the best. So,
Thank you.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We look forward to it.
Everybody loves beer. The next item on the agenda is a Class 2 dealer license hearing for 556 Main Street, Dicon Auto Sales LLC, doing business as Dicon Auto Sales. Is there anyone here from Dicon Auto Sales? Guess we'll move on from that one. We are tabling the next item, a commercial garage license hearing, until our next meeting. The next item, therefore, is a joint meeting with Parks and Rec concerning their commission member vacancy appointment. I see Mr. Bitt. Do you guys, oh, hi. It's, and maybe, Matt, can you yell for Mike? I don't know. Sure. He has more information. I was told that there was an application coming in, late breaking news, but I guess we hadn't received anything up until this point, so I don't know how you guys want to handle this. If he got it, you know, I haven't seen it yet, so you tell us, like,
Let's see if we have an
Yeah.
application. If we don't have an application, we can't fill the vacancy. We could appoint Mr. Cobus back. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
Were the other members of the board, the commission, aware of the meeting tonight?
Yeah.
I think the idea was once we knew there was no applicants, that maybe we didn't need to do a full thing. We did get one?
Yes.
Well, what do you guys think? I mean, we can,
When was it received?
sorry?
When was it received?
Today.
So past the deadline?
Yeah.
What was the deadline?
I'm not aware what the deadline was.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, we'll take our lead from you guys. I mean, what,
We could re-advertise again and meet
Uh-huh.
up September 2nd.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we postpone the appointment. If the Parks and Recreation Commission prefers that we re-advertise and meet again to do this, I make the motion that we,
motion made?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded to postpone. Any discussion?
I do. Mr. Ward, was there a deadline for the letter of interests for the committees? Or for Parks and Rec?
For the Parks and Rec, we did put it in the paper on the 7th, just to be able to distribute them to everybody, but nothing was received by then, so I guess at that point, it's just asking people to keep submitting them. I just did get an email a couple minutes ago from a candidate, but that's the first I received since the advertisement.
well, it's my impression that the rest of the Parks and Recreation Commission isn't here, maybe because they were unaware of any applicants to the position, so I stand by the motion I made that we postpone till our next meeting and notify Parks and Recreation that we will be voting on the appointment at that meeting.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor?
I do.
Aye.
I just have a comment that I would like to make that, even though it wasn't received by the deadline, someone did express interest in joining it. We've talked about having civic engagement with various boards, and the fact that there was one person who did make an effort to express interest. I believe that, I disagree with the motion, or I don't support the motion, but that's all.
Sure. I mean, it's my understanding it came in after the meeting started, so this person will still be considered.
Yes, still
I haven't
have.
had a chance to see it, so.
Yeah, so
They're not disqualified. by
Neither
any
has
stretch.
me.
so, all right, well, let's finish this motion first.
And under discussion,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that this is a joint appointment between this board and the remaining members of the Parks and
I gotcha.
Recreation Commission. And out of respect for them, if they weren't here just because they weren't available, that's one thing, but they weren't here because they were unaware of there being any applicants.
Right.
So
Understood.
I defer out of respect to that board that we postpone.
And Mr. Chair, still under discussion, should we, a
Re-advertise
new
it.
deadline, or should we discuss what a new deadline should be?
What, that gives us 3 weeks? I mean,
Or do we want to do 3 weeks, what?
September 2nd is our next meeting, so, I mean, as long as, you know, do we want to look
Let
at
me phrase it this way.
like the 28th? So I just want to have time to look, you know, if it shows up at 7 o'clock on the 2nd, that doesn't do me much.
Yeah, no, I'm just asking if, does Parks and Rec think that the time between now and our next meeting is enough time to advertise and get new applicants?
Is there a lawful limit? Is that a 15 days? Mr. Ward, do we have to advertise for 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
I don't think advertising is, I think it's really just up to the boards to
Okay.
determine the process. I don't think the statute
Okay.
requires a certain amount of time. I think in the past, it's, generally given at least a week or 2 weeks just to let the public know. But that's already been out there, so I think it's really up to the boards to determine how to proceed.
So if we say that, you know, get things in by the 28th, that's Friday, that gives you, us the
Yep.
weekend and 3 days to consider it.
I'd like to help advertise on social media and our website. I just need the posting from
Okay.
over here.
Mike should be able to do it that. Great. Any other discussion?
So the plan is at our next selectmen's meeting that will be, okay, all right.
So the idea is to have applications or letters of interest in by the 28th.
Fair
And then
enough.
we'll have another joint meeting on the 2nd. Work? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is, are we doing conservation chair? That get bumped too?
I guess.
Okay. Moving on. MMA endorsement of police reform legislation discussion. Mr. Conley, I believe this is yours.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I asked to have a discussion of this on our agenda, primarily because I was extremely disappointed that the MMA, which represents the area, the state's cities and towns and boards of selectmen, their endorsement of the so-called police reform bill, I think they did a disservice to the communities that they represent without at least consulting us. And I also believe that I'm deeply concerned that the legislature worked so quickly in the dead of night to pass this bill without consideration or without participation of the municipalities or the police unions or the Police Chiefs Association. They passed the bill in the dead of night. I have no objection to us, our state and our cities and our communities looking closely at our policing policies and seeing if there's ways to make improvement, but this doesn't do anything to improve anything. It throws our police officers under the bus, and if anything, the real public safety problem that I think we have in this state is police officers being murdered in the streets of our state and our country, and what are we going to do about that? I think that's a more pressing issue for our legislators to be facing right now, and I'm requesting, or I'm making a motion that this board send a letter to the MMA objecting to their endorsement of this bill without consideration from the people they represent, and I'm hoping to have, it's a motion to ask for a letter to be sent to our area legislators objecting to their passing this bill in the manner that they did or are going to, and I guess that's a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, I do think this, in general, I'm in support of this. I don't like being spoken for. I did read the letter. I don't really personally object to anything that was specifically in that letter. I found the take of that letter to be a little bit more nuanced. I didn't find it to be fully supportive of the legislation. I thought there were things that they liked and things that they didn't like. Personally, I share Selectman Conley's concern with this legislation, this police reform legislation that has been pushed through. I feel like it has been much too quickly pushed through. The police chiefs have gone on record saying that they have not had a chance to give any feedback to this legislation. Some of the specific rules that they're calling out in there, such as no choking when you're dealing with armed or physical situations. I just find some of these rules ridiculous. I don't understand why. I mean, when police are in that situation, they can't be thinking that I can't use this hold, I can't use that hold. And the other thing I find that bothers me is that from all I read, Massachusetts and Boston police seem to be kind of a shining example across the country of properly trained police that are already well trained in de-escalation techniques and other things that are kind of buzzwords now. I feel like Massachusetts has kind of been ahead of that. So for our legislation to kind of rush into this bill without feedback and to do it so quickly into a police service that across the country I think is head and shoulders in many regards, I personally disagree with this legislation. But the letter itself from the MMA I thought to be a little bit nuanced. I think they did point out some things in the bill that they didn't like. So I do object in general for them, because I think when they do send a letter, it almost, whether they intend to or not, it's like it does speak for a lot of municipalities, so I will support the motion, because I think every municipality should have its own voice on this issue, so I don't know if that was their intent, but I do agree with Selectman Conley that I am opposed to them writing a letter, and whether purposely or not, kind of insinuating that members of the MMA and other municipalities are in agreement with that letter.
Any other comments? Michael, how often does the MMA contact us when they're doing advocacy on bills? They don't.
Generally, if they're, if they want you to call legislators, like for accused state aid or different things like that, they'll send emails, just asking to let people know. But in terms of...
So they don't poll us, just so people are clear, that the MMA is a representative body. We go to an annual meeting every January, back when we could have meetings. They have a business meeting. There are policy committees on fiscal policy, energy and environment, municipal and regional administration, personnel and labor relations, public works, transportation, and public utilities. So this is what they do. They advocate for cities and towns to try and get legislation that they think is good for them. So this isn't, they're not cherry picking this. This is something that they do quite often, and they don't pull us on anything. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, they don't contact us asking for members to weigh in on.
Okay. But members of this board and other select boards and other cities and towns have the opportunity to serve on these, since we're all selectmen members. So if we were really that interested in advocacy, we could get appointed on one of these things and have a say in that way, or we could contact them and have our say that way. I just want people to think this isn't something that the MMA, they don't poll. I mean, it'd be impossible to take a vote of 351 cities and towns on every piece of legislation that they're advocating for. So that's why, I spoke to the police union about this. I've spoken to the chief, not about this, but when Black Lives Matter was coming into the headlines, about what a fan I am of this police department. I've said it publicly, I've said it privately. The cops get out of their cruisers. They know their town. They're focused on results and not just padding arrest records. If there's an overdose, they follow things up. They get additional training in things like mental health, so that when they're put in a bad situation, they know how to handle it. Reform is coming, and I do agree that things like qualified immunity, as the MMA says in their statement, should be studied before we make a decision on that. I just want people to understand that you can support the police and still realize that not every city and town has it as good as we have. So even in Massachusetts. So I think contacting our legislators is fine, which is something people should have been doing all along. I know this came up quick, but it's still in committee, so nothing's been passed yet. I just think taking this out on the MMA for them doing their job, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I know that a lot of towns are doing it. It just seems like a cheap stunt. It's not really going to make any difference. If people have concerns about this bill, call your state rep, call your state senator, and tell them about it. They're the ones who get to decide. While I support certainly our police department, I also support the need for reform. I think it should be smart reform. I think it should be nuanced. I think it should take its time. I just don't think beating on the MMA is going to get any of that. So that's what I have to say.
Mr. Chairman, my motion is to request that on behalf of the town of Clinton and the Clinton Board of Selectmen, that a letter be sent to the MMA objecting to their support of the police reform bill, and to our area legislators objecting to the passage of the bill in such a rushed, unstudied, lack of opportunity for public participation and affected parties' participation, and they should step back and study this before they jump into it. We've been waiting 8 months for a budget from the state legislature. They can't get that done, but they can pass a bill like this in the dead of the night.
Would you be willing to split this into two motions?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I make a motion that we send a letter to the MMA requesting or advising them of our objection to their support of the police reform bill.
I second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair is opposed. Second motion?
The second motion is that we, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and the Town of Clinton, a letter be sent to all our local state representatives and senator objecting to the police reform bill as it currently exists.
I second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. Lipke is here. The next item is from the Board of Health on our coronavirus effort.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Welcome, Mr. Lipke.
Just wanted to give you a brief update on the status here in town. As of this morning, we had one positive case, and they'll probably be contagious for another week or so, but by early next week, if everything goes well, we could be down to 0 active cases, which we had last week for about a couple hours. But out of 265, we're down to 1. I think we're doing great. I think it's people taking it serious, social distancing, wearing a mask, and following the governor's orders. So it has been working. They just came out with some new guidelines regarding restaurants, and they limited the capacity.
Yep.
25 for indoor gatherings, 50 for outdoor gatherings. So I think that's going to be a moving target going forward with the flu season coming up. So with that, we're looking to add hours for our staff, and we'd like to get them out there at night and on the weekends doing some inspections in some of the restaurants, problem areas that we have. I met with the personnel board last night, and they approved us. Just wanted to run it by you guys.
Yep.
We have the money that you appropriated a month ago, but we just got to, dot our I's and cross our T's to get it done appropriately.
Do we need to do anything for that, Michael? Or
In terms of the,
adding hours? If the personnel board's okay with it, we've already, the money's been.
yeah, but I think just, I mean, again, if the selectmen just want to support all that too, I think it's just how it's financial people that shows that this money was spent with everybody's support.
Great. Any questions on this? Okay. So we're good there. Do you want to talk about, this is talking about liquor license hours of operation?
Excuse me?
I've got section 12 liquor license hours of operation on there. Is that's, we're going to,
Well,
just stressing that,
That would fall into you guys. The way when we open these places, we said they could remain open as long as you're serving food.
right.
Most restaurants close at 10 o'clock, and that has been our stance all along. I don't know if you want to change that at all or modify hours, but right now that's our stance on it. We haven't been there at night to keep an eye on it because we didn't have the cash to send
Yep.
people out. We're certainly going to do that now, send them out a couple times a week, at least once on the weekend to monitor that, and we can certainly keep you in the loop as far as what we're finding. And we should definitely address them individually and not as a group. I mean, there's some out there that are doing a great job, and they're following everything to the letter of the law. So I'd hate to see someone like that punished because someone else isn't
Sure.
really paying as much attention.
So people understand that the governor this week kind of pulled back, and before there were circumstances where if you were getting food from an adjacent establishment, you could be serving alcohol. So they were trying to help bars get open. That's no longer the case. The food has to be made on premises now.
Is what they're saying. So with that, from how we're reading it, how we're interpreting it, is there's no more food trucks. So if you're going to be open, you've got to make and prepare your food on site. No prepackaged food, no food trucks. So that's going to change the game a little bit for a few of the players. But we've notified them. We brought a copy of the new regulations out, and they all got that yesterday. first thing in the morning. So they're aware of the situation. We'll monitor it closely and we'll keep you in the loop.
And I think what we're also trying to say is that if you serve food until 10, you serve alcohol until 10. That,
I agree.
We're not sticking around for 2 hours afterward, hanging out. We've gotten this far by playing by the rules. And I think if everybody plays by the rules, we're going to keep it in the right direction. So I don't want to speak for the board, but I certainly support that effort. Michael, there's something about weed on here.
Yeah, I think Mr. Duffy would like to address that.
Do you need anything else from us? So we're on board for catching up the overtime, moving
Okay.
forward with
I'd like
hours.
the other thing I'd like to compensate them for working the extra hours from March through June. At the time, we couldn't pay them because they work 18 hours a week. Based on the retirement, they can't add any more hours. The governor recently passed a bill allowing retired workers to work more than 900 hours a week. So that's given us, I told them to keep track of them. I've got a copy of everything.
Yep.
And so I said I'd bring it to you guys after when and if something happens. So he has waived that, so I like to compensate them as well, if you don't mind.
Do we need a motion, Mike, to support that?
For their hours.
Catching up.
Catching up on the overtime that they had already worked.
Yeah, again, I think if you made a motion, it would be just supportive of all that, so we know we're spending the money. I think those hours would be put in through FEMA reimbursement anyways. And then the extra, enforcement hours we can maybe use through CARES Act. So, yeah. So again, as long as I think that everybody is supportive and on board and everyone's aware of it, I think we're good.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion anyways, just to have it on record that the Board of Selectmen supports and endorses compensating the Board of Health employees for the additional hours they've worked through this whole situation.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I just have only one thing. Do you think that is the money that we allocated to you guys? Do you think that's sufficient, or do you think in the coming months that because I don't want to speak for the board either, but I think we would all be willing if you think you needed additional funding to do your job.
For now, I think we're fine.
Okay.
When flu season comes around, I think it's going to become challenging again.
Right.
And, we may have to come back and talk to you. And at that time, we may need some additional help.
Okay.
Maybe another nurse or something like that if this comes back like it did before. But we've got a plan in place. We've got some outside resources, so we're getting ready for it. And hopefully, it doesn't happen. But
Okay. The only thing I would just advise, and we can think about it for our next meeting, is I don't know if there's things that we could approve but not have approved and have ready to go at a moment's notice, so that if something does happen in the fall, we're not in some situation where we have to wait like a week before the select board gets together to appropriate funds or something. So it's just something to consider for our next meeting. Maybe if there's some way that we can have something reserved on the side and just available, kind of an emergency.
But I think I think the Board of Health can walk away tonight.
Yes.
Understanding that they have our full support.
Absolutely. Yep.
Whatever they need in the future, all they gotta do is tell us and then find a way to make it available.
no, you have in the past. We've appropriated money to replenish all our supplies, and we appreciate that. And we're ahead of the game right now. So hopefully, we don't need it, and we'll see what happens.
Perfect.
Then that's the important thing. We're ahead of the game, and we're willing to work, as this board said all along, we're willing to work within the restrictions that the state gives us. As you can be as creative as you want, but when people start ignoring those rules, sooner or later, and it's going to be sooner, I think, coming up, the state's going to start noticing, and then there's not much we can do at all. Once you get in the state pipeline, we can't help you. So err on the side of caution. If you have a question, come to us and ask.
Sure.
Come to the Board of Health and ask. And we, like I said, as we've shown, we're willing to work with anybody. But if you take things into your own hands and you go off on your own and you're not obeying the rules, it will catch up to you. People will see.
They did put together a task force. They appropriated $500,000 for enforcement with state troopers coming in undercover. They're targeting the top 20 hot communities right now. Obviously, we're not one of them, but they're starting there, and then they're going to work their way down the list, and they got a ways to go to get to us, as long as things stay the way they are. But once they get involved and take over, like you said, they're on their own.
Great. Any other discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, only question is, I know that Mr. Lipka was talking about the liquor license hours of operation.
Yep.
So is that, I mean, we talked about it, he mentioned that it was something that the Board of Health seems to feel would make sense because restaurants are only, the kitchens are supposed to close at 10. Is that anything that we are going to entertain tonight, or are we just going to kind of put that as something we will discuss at the next meeting? Because
I think, first I do, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, isn't that one of the state guidelines that the Board of Health is charged with enforcing?
I think the question is, Steve, in other conversations, he's concerned that we have authority over liquor licenses, not the Board of Health. So it's, there's hours of operation is one thing, but liquor license, and I don't know if we ever got a ruling on whether we could do that across the board, or if we had to do hearings for every...
The hours of operation for the liquor establishments are definitely in the realm of the Board of Selectmen. We do have local town approved rules. The state has statutory hours for the max that you can't go beyond, but you can always go lower and restrict that. So Clinton does have a set of guidelines, and it's up to the Board of Selectmen. I know in speaking with town council, there's a question whether, there should be a hearing, but I think it's ultimately really up to the selectmen to be able to do that. So, and especially based on what we're doing, it's limited. It's not, there are only a few establishments that are being opened according to the state guidelines. So it's not as though it's affecting all of the liquor licenses. So you could maybe, just say if you're going to open according to these new guidelines, you have to follow these new local rules as well too. So I think it's something the board can do, in my opinion.
Mr. Duffy.
Mr. Kerrigan, you may recall that at a prior meeting, this board delegated to Mr. Ward and myself the responsibility for reviewing and approving applications for extensions of premises under the ABCC guidelines. In those letters of approval that went out, there is a clause that says that, among other things, among the required compliances is compliance with hours of operations as established by the Clinton Board of Health. So that does go to you, but for those establishments that are using that extension of premises to operate, there is language in their approval that stipulates they'll comply by the requirements of the Board of Health relative to hours of operation. So it is addressed in our internal process in that manner.
Mr. Chairman, maybe if we pass a motion stipulating that clause be that the institutions or the businesses that are allowed to open under the emergency powers and the regulations issued by the state follow the guidelines set by the Board of Health relative to sale of food and alcohol.
and liquor and liquor service hours of operation.
They can't serve liquor if they're not serving food, and
Right.
they can't serve liquor
Goes hand in hand.
after they close the kitchens.
Okay, so,
But allow the Board of Health to implement those regulations. But the motion is that we support that.
so, right, the motion is just to make clear that we support whatever the Board of Health recommends for hours of liquor license hours of operation. Okay.
I'll second that.
Yep.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Mr. Duffy.
Mr. Kerrigan, members of the board, very briefly, we'd like to speak to you about wheat. You may recall that at your March 24th meeting, this board authorized my office to work with wheat to provide an operating subsidy for their program, which is providing meals to residents of Clinton. Since the onbreak of the pandemic, there has been a marked increase in the number of meals that wheat is serving to the community. I spoke with Jody Bridell earlier this week. That number has remained consistently between 5,800 and 6,200, I think, since March. And we provided a subsidy equal to 60 meals a day up to June 30th. And quite frankly, left that out of my mind until I received an invoice for the July services. So I'm here to see if the board would be willing to continue and slightly extend that program, which again is addressing a need in town. It remains a need in town. WHEAT's other funding sources have diminished a little bit after an initial burst of contributions and donations at the onset. I'm proposing that we increase that from 60 meals a day to 70 meals a day, an increase of a little over 12%, and continue this program up to September 30th, which is the end of another quarter. If we're still in the same situation at the end of September, we can revisit it for the fourth quarter of the year. And if your board will entertain the idea, I'd request that the funding for this quarter's program come from our CARES Act funding. I'll leave it to Mr. Ward to determine whether it is an eligible use of the funds. If not, the fund in my office that we're using, the Community Development Fund, has adequate resources to provide this program for an additional quarter.
It's a pleasure of the board.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Next item, Traffic Committee report. Traffic Committee met on Monday and discussed a few things that we would like to share our recommendations on. First off, parking at the end of Grove Street for the DCR spillway at the Wachusett Dam. Residents at the end of Grove Street near the spillway met with us, stating that the traffic and parking issue is severely impacting the ability to access their driveways. They requested the area be designated as parking for residents only. The Traffic Committee is recommending that the town solicitor and town administrator research the legality of resident-only parking restrictions. We don't have that anywhere else in town, and while we certainly want to give them relief, before we go that way, we wanted to make sure that we had the right to do that. Do you want to, anything else on that, Michael?
No, the Superintendent of Public Works is here as well. He's on the Traffic Committee, and suggested that they paint some markings in the street that can at least designate parking or where it's not safe to park, so that it clearly defines where traffic should be there.
You want to take these one by one? Yeah, probably.
Sure.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board?
What are we voting on?
You're going to,
It says, the Traffic Committee is recommending that town solicitor and town administrator research the legality of resident-only parking restrictions. Does that need action by us tonight?
does it?
No, as long as everyone's okay with us doing that, and the board's, supportive, we just wanted to.
Between Mike and town council?
Yeah. As long as you're, I just want to get you guys up to that. We've got 2 handicap parking requests. One for the Clinton Housing Authority. Resident on Woodlawn Street is requesting that the Clinton Housing Authority design some handicap parking spaces out of the 14 spaces along the street. The Traffic Committee is recommending that at least 1 space be designated as handicap parking.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to support the recommendation of the Traffic Committee.
And I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Handicap parking on Grove Street. A resident of 161 Grove Street is requesting a handicap parking in front of their residence. The Traffic Committee is recommending denial of this request in keeping with previous action not to allow individual handicap parking in neighborhoods.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to support the recommendation of the Traffic Committee in this matter.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a question. So, does this impede the individual's ability to access their own property?
No, not that I'm aware of.
In terms of
So, I guess, what, are they seeking to have a handicapped parking spot in front of their home because otherwise it would impede their ability to access their home if they're unable to park in a particular
not that
location?
they're unable to park, I think it's just limited parking in that area, so the people at that location indicated that due to some medical issues, it's hard for them to walk, and sometimes they may have to park a little further down the street, so there's I don't think there wasn't a complaint that there's no parking there, but that sometimes, the next door neighbors might be parking there and they have to park further down and walk further, so they wanted the ability to, maybe park right in front of their house and just go in and out. And I understand, and I think the committee understands and sympathizes with them, but there's been a number of other requests around town in neighborhoods, off-street neighborhoods, where people have said the same thing. They said, I want to park in front of my house instead of 2 spaces down, or, when there's multifamily or a lot of parking. So the traffic committee just didn't want to set that precedent. So in the past, they have recommended denial, so they just want to keep with their current recommendations.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So correct me if I'm wrong, but if the first topic of discussion, the parking at the end of Grove Street, gets addressed, this one should also be addressed as well, right? Because this person seems like they're asking for the same thing as the first bullet point. It's just that it's more of a necessity for this request because the person is handicapped. I mean, aren't people asking for some type of right to have a parking space in front of their house that other people cannot park in? Isn't that the complaint?
If I could, the difference is the parking on Woodlawn Street is designated, it's a parking area.
He's talking about the people at the end of Grove. So if we're restricting parking,
Well, the end of Grove is a different issue. The
No,
end of Grove-
there's another one, Chris. There's 161 Grove. Not quite to the end.
I think what Ed's saying is that if we're carving out special parking on one end of the street, why aren't we doing it on the other end?
Well, I don't know where this person lives on Grove Street. I'm assuming I was assuming that they live in a similar area where this parking concern of people going to use the spillway,
exactly.
it's in a different, okay, all right.
They're at the very beginning near Nashville Street. There
Okay.
is parking on the street, and they do have parking in their driveway. They
Okay.
actually have a fair amount of room.
Okay.
At the other end of the street, the bigger issue is a lot of times they can't even back out of their driveway.
Sure.
And it's very, very congested there because it's a dead end, and there are times when they can't literally get out of their driveways because of the way people are parking. So
Right.
we're trying to address it. The police have been down there countless times.
Right.
Before people have been up in front of us many, many times. We're trying to do what we can within our powers, but we're really not sure what we can do. That's the reason.
Don't some of the houses down there,
Don't
they don't even have driveways?
That's the other problem.
That's the problem.
So, I mean, I don't see, I don't see how I would think that we would you need a place to park if they don't have a driveway. I know,
Right. The problem isn't the people who live on the street, it's the people who are coming to use the spillway from out of town.
correct, right.
So there's signage up now that's, was designed to try and impede that. People don't pay attention. DCR was talking about moving the gate to closer to the bridge to try and open up some spots there. But because of the pandemic, they've had all that work backed up. So what we're trying to do is just at least know what options we have right now. Because, frankly, if it's resident only, can I park there? Or is it residents of Grove Street? I'm a resident of town. We haven't done it before. So I think we want to make sure we know what tools we have in our toolbox before. Right now, Chris is going to, you can't park in front of someone's garage. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Or next to the hydrant. There's
Right.
a hydrant there, they park right there.
Yep.
So we're gonna paint yellow in front of their driveway, their garage.
Right.
And just so people won't park in those spots. But like you said, we're not saying that we want designated resident only. We want to know if we're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So we have an option that maybe that's what we need to do. It's much worse because of COVID, because people don't go walk, they're
Right.
going to other places, so.
It's gotten worse since we put the signs up.
I mean, I think the DCR, I don't know if they've been talked to about this, you mentioned that they may have. I mean, they should be a part of the solution to this, I think, because it's a nice attraction for the town, that area. I mean, I don't want to totally prevent people from being able to see it and walk around and everything, but the people that live there have to come first.
Yes.
So the DCR, I think, if they can do something to help us to get some sort of a designated parking area so that people won't have to park at the end of that street, I think that would be ideal.
I think my understanding is they were all on board
Eventually,
with
if
that.
the DCR moves that gate down to, like you say,
Open
the
up
White Bridge, Hill Greyhound, move it
610,
down there, you'll have a half dozen easy parking
Right.
spaces. But
They've
again,
agreed to do that.
Okay,
They've
just-
agreed to do that, but then
They
COVID
got
hit
lost
there.
because of the
Half
virus.
chance,
Okay.
that's not their focus right now, but they have agreed to do that.
Okay, good.
Which is good.
Good, yep.
And Mark Lester
Work in
actually
progress.
been in contact with them recently, so it's, I think, they agreed to it last year, but then this hit, they were gonna do it in the spring, and he has been in contact with them, somewhat recently, probably within the last 2 or 3 months. They still want to do it, but they just haven't had the resources
Yeah.
right now. They've got other issues.
Okay. Let's keep it on the radar.
Absolutely. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Last one's a little more complicated. The town administrator in Bolton, Don Lowe, informed the committee that Bolton had petitioned the Massachusetts Department of Transportation for a truck exclusion on Wattacotic Hill, which has been supported by the town of Berlin. So it's not us doing the truck exclusion, just so people are clear. Mass DOT is requiring an opinion from the town of Clinton before they act on this proposal. Members of the traffic committee expressed some concern of trucks being rerouted through Berlin, which would require them to travel through the downtown area. After discussion, traffic committee is recommending to support the truck exclusion for a period of 1 year and then reevaluate the traffic impact on Clinton at that time. Since then, we've, I guess there's been some, we're looking for some clarification on whether we can actually do that. So-
Right, yeah, there's been some question, I think the traffic committee said, all right, well, we'll take a look at it, we'll monitor it, see what the impact is, but now the question comes in, if after we said a year, but after 3 months, if it's an absolute public safety concern in the downtown, or trucks coming around, trying to cut through Union Street from Chestnut, if we say this just is not working, can we do it after 3 months or 6 months? Can we go back and ask them to reevaluate? Or do we say, no, we gotta put up with this headache until a year from now?
The way I remember the motion being made, it was, we will allow it for a period of 1 year, and anytime during that 1 year, we can take objection to it. After 1 year, it becomes permanent, and we're not gonna come back to you 4 years from now. That's the way I kind of understood it, that it was more like we can stop it at any time, up to a year, then after a year, we'll say, all right, everything is fine, and we're not gonna oppose it after that.
Mr.
Mr. Conlon.
Do we know for a fact that either after a year or after a month, that the state would allow us to revoke that? I don't believe they would.
No.
Once, I don't believe we even have to approve it necessarily. They could go over our heads and approve it over our objection if the state was so inclined. We heard from, during public comment, one business owner that was surprised by this and believes his business opportunities would be severely impacted by this decision if it's approved. I think every business owner and everyone in the town of Clinton, I don't know what good approving this does for Clinton or Clinton residents or Clinton businesses, but I can see a lot of negatives. I can see redirecting traffic into other busy streets in Clinton to come in. If they have to go down 117 and then come in through High Street, then what do they do with the bridge at the Bridge Diner? How do they, get around that? It's not a simple thing to just go a little further down the road and come on in. It severely impacts trucking coming into Clinton. For as long as I've been a participant in talking about revitalizing the town of Clinton, the biggest roadblock that we have is highway access to the town of Clinton. And now we're going to make it harder? Someone would really have to work really hard to convince me that this would work well for the town of Clinton. So I objected to supporting this unless or until, one, we can be guaranteed that we can revoke this after a year or after a month or whatever time frame we want, and two, that it actually does serve the best interests of the town of Clinton and doesn't hurt our business community. And that's a big sell for me personally. So I object to supporting this in any way, shape, or form. I've spent some time thinking about it since I heard about it, and it flies in the face of everything we've always said. What can we do to improve the town of Clinton? And we can't change our highway access, but we can make it worse. It just doesn't make sense to me. So if, I don't know if this will sell, but Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we send DOT a strong objection to a truck traffic ban on that major route coming into the town of Clinton.
I second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just to reiterate, I mean, what Selectman Conley said, we're like 12, 15 minutes away from the closest highway, and now this is a proposal that would cut off, I mean, that road coming into town is coming right from 495. That's one of two ways into Clinton from 495, the other one coming through the acre. So I don't see any benefit. I mean, it's not like that road traditionally has heavy traffic on it. It's not like we're talking about trucks driving down, Franklin Street or something like that. This is like it's a fairly high traffic area. So, I agree with Selectman Conley. I don't see what good this possibly does, especially for everything that we're trying to do to help businesses in town.
I also echo what Mr. Conley has said.
I want to thank the board for their candor and counsel. This certainly wasn't something we were gung-ho about, but we were trying to be good neighbors and find a way to find a happy medium. It doesn't seem like it's happy, and so I will support Mr. Conley's motion as well. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, that's that. Administrative business, water sewer abatements. Superintendent of Public Works has submitted a list of water sewer trash abatements in the amount of $9,431.74 from the last billing cycle for action by the board. What's the pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to support the abatements as presented by the Superintendent of Public Works.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Michael, do you want to talk about this next one? Has this changed?
Sure. I was approached by a group that wanted to have an assembly in front of the town hall to commemorate the centennial of the passing of the 19th Amendment, which is giving women the right to vote. It's called the Forward and to Light movement to all across the country to get people to commemorate this event. They had asked to do that event here in Clinton on August 26th, but due to the new gathering regulations the governor came out with this week, they're going to cancel the event. But there are colors associated with this activity, and one of them being purple, and they were asking if it's possible, and if it's not, so be it, but if there's any possibility to work with the facilities director, can the town hall somehow be lit up purple on that day to show support for the event, whether it's the tower or something reflecting off the building or something in that day. So they want to cancel the assembly, but then in lieu of that, ask if the board would support lighting up the town hall.
I make a motion to support the request.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Old and new business, High Street Improvement Project construction contract.
All right, we opened bids for the long-awaited High Street reconstruction project. The low bid for the project was submitted by I.W. Harding Company. They're out of West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Roughly a little bit more, $3.8 million, so $3,828,816.15. The engineer's estimate on the project was close to $4.8 million. So the prices we got were very favorable. The second low bidder was actually $4.1 million, and they ranged up to, the high bidder was quite high, but there were several prices within the $3.8 to $4.4 million range, so it was a pretty competitive bid. The low bidder is, again, it's I.W. Harding. They have They've been around for a long time. They have a lot of experience. We did call several references, both the engineering company, Beta Engineering, and myself. We called references to find out, more about them. They are a contractor that, I think there's two different kinds of contractors. The contractors that come in and they work with you every step of the way, and they aren't paperwork type contractors. IW Harding is not that type of contractor. They're a contractor that looks for requests for informations and submits extra work orders. There will be change orders on the project. It's a downtown project where underground you're really not sure what you're going to hit. We had a lot of back and forth about it, a tremendous amount of back and forth about it. Every contact that we've made with people said that the work that they did was very, very good. And they did their work quickly, and they did their work well. The issue is you really have to have a lot of on-site supervision. You have to document, because they will go for extra work orders. Some companies will come in, and if there's a $1,000 extra work order, they're like, whatever, it'll all come out in the wash at the end. I was in contracting my whole life before I worked here. We were that type of contractor. There are other contractors who don't do that, and it's kind of two different ways of thinking. A lot of times, a lot of the big building contractors are more of the, if I can get a change order, I'm getting it. And I think overall, we got very good prices on the project. We can't go to the second low bidder because they get paid extra money for doing extra work that's approved. So it's just not possible. The only other thing you could possibly do would be to go to rebid, which I'm not recommending. There's nothing saying that they're not going to be the low bidder the next time. There's also nothing saying that the next contractor could be worse than them. I think I talked to people, like they're doing a job right now in downtown Hudson, the Rotary and that whole area. It's coming out great. I have a relationship with the DPW superintendent in Hudson, and he said, when we started this project, I was kicking myself for giving them the job, but right now, he says, I'm very happy with them. We get along great. The job's going great, and it's great work. So myself and Phil we did go back and forth a lot. Beta Engineering was the engineering company, actually had a job that there were a lot of change orders on. The city of New Bedford had a downtown project, and they battled. They battled their way through it. They did the project and got the project done. But what it ends up being is we got very good prices. We got a contractor who can do the job, and a contractor that does very good work from everything we're being told. It's just going to put a little bit more of an onus on Phil and myself to really manage the job, which we are comfortable that we can do that. Beta's a big firm. They can handle this as well. And so and I'm not speaking for Phil, but I would recommend that, we award the project to IW Harding, $3,828,816.15, and we get this project rolling.
So what would be the plan for the oversight? Would it be on you guys, or?
We're just gonna keep an eye on the contractor.
Yeah, and we're working with the engineer, and we've had internal discussions about maybe having some redundant eyes on the project, just to make sure that we're documenting everything. Having a conversation with the contractor, we know there's going to be change orders. Mm-hmm. We could look at this in one way and say we could go to X percent of change orders and still be ahead of the second bidder, but we're going to have change orders just because of the nature of this project. The important thing is that the project be done well, the project be completed in as expeditious a manner as possible, and that the project come in on budget. And that's all possible, but we may be coming to you with the request to basically hire that other set of eyes, the person who's measuring every pailful of materials, the person who's timing them on change orders, that kind of stuff.
We have a proposal from Beta Engineering, which we probably will bring to the next meeting. We haven't been able to vet that yet for construction services. So they've proposed to have an on-site supervisor on-site all the time. We've had discussions also about maybe hiring some type of a liaison that could work with the business owners, scheduling and notifying them what's going on and kind of keeping in touch with those people. And we've maybe thought of you know, a possibility, if we're gonna do that and have a full-time engineer overseeing the project, and then the town's gonna have maybe a liaison part-time to deal with the scheduling issues with the businesses, maybe that person could also be an extra set of eyes for the, you know, the construction issues that might come up. If they have a construction background, they could, really what it comes down to is documenting time. You know, if they come and say, this is a change order, a lot of times it is a change order. They might come in and say, it's a change order, I want $5,000 for it. You say, no, it's a change order, I'll keep track of your time. You have to keep track of the time. And, you know, they might say, I want $5,000 for a job that's gonna take them an hour. You document it, it's an hour, you issue a change order, it's fine. It's not like that's the end of the world to do that, but it takes a little bit of time. So there's a possibility we could hire the engineer, have an on-site guy doing all the major work, and then maybe a set of eyes, especially at the beginning of the project from the town, to be able to, you know, make sure the project is going in the right direction early on, which every single person we talked to said, if you're on top of it right from the beginning, you'll have no problem, and by the end of the job, you'll have no issue with these people whatsoever. So we think the early upfront, be aggressive upfront with them, and not to say, you know, we're not trying to rip them off. We're trying to be fair to everybody. And if we have our eyes on it early on, I think the project will go really well. And you know, quality of construction and speed of construction are not their issue whatsoever. So that's why I'm comfortable with the project.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We need, somebody has got to be a project supervisor for this. And it can't just be you two guys. No offense to you two guys. So my question is I'm processing what you guys are saying. So is IW Harding, they just don't have that type of resource? They don't have like project supervisors? Or
IW Harding is the project, they'll have a project manager assigned to the job, they'll handle that. The town of Clinton will be coming to you at the next meeting, will hire more than likely a person from Beta Engineering, full-time, to act on the town's behalf, measuring quantities, going over all the issues, making sure the job is done the way it's supposed to be done. What we're saying is possibility of having an extra set of eyes for at least the beginning of the project, to be a liaison to our business owners down there, to make sure they're heard and understood, and we have a little bit of a more intimate, you know, knowledge of what they need and what they want, instead of having the engineer do that. And at the same time, they might be able to do a little bit of documenting and keep the job in the right. This is a, you know, this is a over $4 million job. It's a big project. So if 2 sets of eyes is not going to hurt this project whatsoever. But the main, they have a project manager. We have a consultant that is watching everything they do. And I'm talking about another set of eyes that's not near him, because we can't do it. Neither of us have time to do that.
So regardless of the construction companies that we chose, we would still be having an engineer on the town's behalf as a project supervisor.
That's standard operating procedure.
Okay, I was getting the false impression that that was kind of like a deficiency of this company, that they just don't have that type of resource, and that we have to,
Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we award the bid for High Street Improvement Project to IW Harding as the low bidder.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
only the other, when do we start to discuss the other roles?
Your next meeting.
The next meeting.
We already have a proposal from Beta Engineering to do the construction oversight, and we just haven't vetted it yet.
Yeah,
And we'll
they've
come to
also
you at the
given us
next
a
meeting.
proposal for providing that liaison service.
Okay.
You know, it's, I think it's very important.
Yes.
And I think it can be handled, it's primarily a communications position and a personal position. It's very useful to have somebody who's walking up to the business owner and saying, you know, tell us, make sure that we know that your concerns. This is the website that this person we hire will be updating every single day, telling everybody what this week's schedule of work is. So people will be able to follow the job and be
just
informed.
real tentatively, by the way things are moving right now, do you guys have any idea when construction would begin?
I would guess about a month.
Okay.
About a month.
Because I mean, it's, I hate to say this, but like just with COVID going on and everything that we're dealing with, if we could get this done during a time when there's not as much traffic as possible, it would be ideal.
It's always been a more than one construction season job.
Okay.
So we will start this year, and then next year, it's just, we'll end a little later than we thought next year.
Okay.
How does that dovetail into the Water Street project to Maine? Is that?
No, leave alone the High
Supposed to
Street
be happening
project.
at the same
Right,
time?
Yeah,
right.
the other
These
High Street
projects at the same
project,
time,
too.
yeah.
It doesn't actually connect because literally the northern High Street project that's going on right now stops before the traffic lights. The Water Street job stops before the traffic lights, and this project stops before the traffic lights. That intersection was redone with another project, a tip project, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. So the sidewalks, curbing, and lights are all done. So we actually have a nice little demarcation for each of the three projects ending at the same intersection at the same time.
So that intersection's gonna be pretty congested.
It's going to be a blast,
for the
yeah.
next year.
Actually, the lower High Street job is going very quickly. There is a problem with National Grid, not that it's their fault, but they have issues with transferring over the poles that is going to slow it down a little bit, but the bulk of the construction is going to be done before this project starts, so.
I had a question. Has the business owners on High Street been contacted with just a tentative timeline on the work so they can prepare themselves as well?
No, not yet. Not
Okay.
yet, quite frankly. We need to sit and talk about the contract, we need to talk about phasing, how open they are to beginning the project at the northern end and working backwards so that we're later into the fall season by the time we get to the other end. But we need to have those discussions and understand if there's any ramifications in the cost. The contractors own the materials and methods, and they own phasing, so.
I think being sensitive to the fact that the businesses on High Street have gone through an extraordinary time since COVID has started, so this could be another obstacle to their business, and I think that the better we are at communicating with them and keeping them in the loop, I think then that may ease some of the blow.
We agree, Matt, and that's why we're taking the extraordinary step of actually hiring somebody to do exactly that.
We did. We had a subcommittee, and several of the downtown business owners, both from the north end of the project and the south end of the project and in the middle, were actually members of the subcommittee. We had anybody who was really being impacted. We had a lot of discussions, and we changed designs to better fit in with what people needed. They're not quite. At this point, they don't really know that. Some of them do know that the bids were received and that things are moving forward, but we will be contacting them for sure.
Excellent.
Let them know what's going on.
But there's no getting around the fact that this is gonna be extremely disruptive to the downtown business community, but it's part of the process. The project's gotta get done, it's gotta get done efficiently. I'm sure it's gonna be disruptive to the sidewalk, restaurant opportunities that we've presented. Sidewalks are being ripped out, the street's gonna be dug up, so, there's gonna be some unhappy businesses and people in the town, but it's no different than Lower High Street or Berlin Street or any Water Street or any of the other projects. We know it's gonna be disruptive, and we just have to hunker down and get through it.
It literally, what I would say is, we can make everybody happy through this whole project if we do this project over a 10-year period, and nobody's going to be happy if we do that. So it has to be done efficiently and with as little disruption as possible, but they all have to be aware there will be disruption. There's no question about that, and I think they're all aware of that. So,
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much. We're saying Greeley Street Water Main Construction Award.
all right, this is an easier one.
Okay.
We opened bids for Greeley Street water main replacement from just to the south of Flag Street. We actually have a new line coming down to Sterling Street. There's a very old line. We're doing this work in preparation to repave Greeley Street, hopefully next year. It's in disrepair, and it's high on my list of projects to get done, but we need to get this water main done first. We actually bid this project last year, and the bid came in at, I think it was $380,000. Made some modifications, and times have changed from the construction, outlook last year, and we got a low bid of $250,000. My glasses aren't even good enough. $63,234.71. Low bidder is Rishardi Brothers out of Worcester, Mass. Rishardi Brothers actually did the water main on High Street. They did the water main on Pleasant Street, Franklin Street, Birch Street. So I have a lot of experience with them. They've done a lot of work in town. They actually are, we awarded them the project on Water Street. They're going to be reconstruction of Water Street. Good company. They're kind of the opposite of what I told you earlier, except they do good work, but they're not the paperwork type. So I would recommend that we award this project to Rishardi Brothers. I have no reservations whatsoever about awarding this project to them.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we award the Greeley Street Water Main Construction Contract Award to Rishardi Brothers in the amount of $263,234.71.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Sterling Street Tip Project Design Services Contract Award.
All right, Sterling Street. So we applied and got approved for our next TIP project, which is a Transportation Improvement Program. That's the same funding source that funded Water Street and is funding Lower High Street right now. So what the town's responsibility is to do the design work for this project. Once the design work is done, the state and the federal government pay for all of the construction oversight. They are extremely difficult projects to design. The requirements are, they're onerous, quite frankly, and they get worse and worse every time we do one of these projects. And I've learned quite a bit, actually, going from Water Street through High Street and to where we are right now. So this company, Green International, they're actually the same company that designed the Lower High Street project. This quote is, well, this proposal is the maximum obligation. It's a not to exceed $150,000. And that gets us through a 25% design, but 25% design is not 25% of the cost. 25% of the design basically gets you construction drawings. The state and the federal government calls it 25%. Money-wise, you're probably at about 75 to 80% of what that design is going to cost. The design usually comes in at around 15% of the construction costs. So if you're looking at a $2 million job, you can look like you're going to spend about $300,000 in design fees, which is a lot more money than I generally spend on design, but you end up getting a project at the end that we could never afford to do. You know, Water Street was probably a $4 million project. Lower High Street is $2.5 million project. They put 8 inches of pavement in. The road is armor by the time you're done. It really, it's well worth it, but it's a long, painful process to get to approval. And Green International is very good at it. They get along very good with the state, and so I would recommend that we award this. So just also, it's a long process too. It'll take, if we get this thing designed within 2 years, I'd say we did great. You're probably looking at 3 years from now to start construction, and it's Sterling Street from the lights on Main Street to Lawrence Street. So I would recommend we award to Green International for not to exceed $150,000.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good luck. Mike's got the next one, huh? Can you tell Mike that we're doing the auditor contract? Audit consultant?
Well, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is for our FY20 audit, looking to see if the board will approve Bill Frere, CPA, Bill Frere Associates, to do our audit. Bill has been doing our municipal audit for a number of years. He was looking to kind of wind down and to finish up on our FY19 audit, but he realizes with the pandemic and not being able to kind of really do things normally to try to go out and find someone, so he agreed to stay on another year and get us through the FY20 that we just ended, and then it gives us that opportunity then to work with him to come up with a new firm going into next year. So I know he's been great help. We're going to be sorry to miss him, and every year he keeps saying it's our last year, but I think this truly is his last year, but we do appreciate him staying on. He works well with the town departments, and I think this will help us kind of get us through this crazy year that we just had, and then we'll have to bid out for next year. This time next year, we'll have to bid out for a firm to do the FY20. So
Pleasure of the board.
We stay with Mr. Ferrer.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we extend the audit consultant proposal to Phil Freyer, CPA, for the 2020 town audit.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Environmental release notice of non-compliance.
Mr. Chair, this action here, just asking for the board to okay a submittal of a response plan from Parker Environmental on behalf of the town. We were in a situation where recent training exercise by the fire department with some firefighting foam ended up getting washed into a catch basin. That foam then went downstream, and a complaint was called into DEP. So firefighting foam now, well, not now, it does contain PFAS, which is a chemical that DEP is now really focusing on and trying to regulate, stricter regulations. So this DEP, it was requires to report this release. Parker Environmental came in. We did initial clean out of the catch basin and some testing downstream, but DEP now wants us to submit a plan of how we're going to monitor this area to see if they trigger levels that they're considering unsafe. Right now, they're still working out the regulations in DEP, so it's kind of difficult. I know Mr. Parker was, trying to get this plan together. He's trying to get direction from DEP, but this is a new chemical that they're really starting to look at for research and regulation. It's in food packaging, it's in clothing, it's really pretty widespread use in society. But this here, there's a lot in this firefighting foam as well too. So Mr. Parker is submitting this response, and again, saying that we'll follow the regulations and do what we need to do, but this isn't something that, they're just developing the guidelines on and we haven't budgeted for, so we'll do what we can in FY21 to try and monitor the soils, but really if they need us to do any major remedial work, it's going to have to be done in FY22 once we determine, working with DEP, what that is. So this plan here is a draft report that Parker Environmental will submit to DEP on our behalf. So before doing that, we wanted to ensure that the Board of Selectmen was aware of that before we submit the report to commit to this regulatory testing and monitoring.
It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move to that the board support the proposed environmental release notice of noncompliance by Parker Environmental on the town's behalf.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Board and commissions appointments.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I can give the board members just quickly a list of the committees just to show that we do have vacancies on pretty much almost every board, the standing committees. These are permanent committees that the selectmen appoint, and pretty much every board has an opening. We put a notice in the paper, we put a notice on the town website, and based on that notice, there's been a response of 2 candidates. Both were for the Council on Aging, and one member of the Council on Aging, because the chair of the Council on Aging has resigned, the bylaws require that the Board of Selectmen appoint the chair, plus 3 other members, and then the chair appoints the remaining members. So with the chair vacancy, that's a selectman appointment. So one member on the commission has put her name in to be appointed for chair, but then there were 2 new people looking to get on the Council on Aging. So all our activity was through Council on Aging, and no other names were submitted for any other board or committee. So, so I know the board wanted to try to fill those vacancies tonight, but we don't really have the,
Thank you.
we don't have the interest as of right now, so we kind of need to do some more outreach and to get some interest among some citizens that are willing to volunteer to help out on some of these boards.
Mr. Conley.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint the applicants to the Council on Aging, including moving up, I don't know how to, what the name is,
Jaleesa?
Jaleesa to chairman, and appoint the other 2 volunteers to the open positions, and table the other appointments until our next meeting. And because we're advertising the Parks and Recreation position, maybe we can, solicit some more volunteers for those other positions and move forward at our next meeting with the rest of them. But the motion is to appoint those members to the Council on Aging.
I'll support the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Cable Executive Director search update. Mr. Ward.
Just briefly, Mr. Chair, just to let the board know, I believe that maybe we may have discussed it before, but the Cable Committee has gotten a position of Executive Director, position created and approved by the Personnel Board. They are now looking to recruit for that position. The deadline is Friday. There's probably a little over 24 or so people that have submitted, which I think for a specialized type job is a good pool, a good number of candidates to choose from. And I believe the committee will be reviewing those once the deadline of Friday comes past, and then we'll, once it goes through the process, we'll come back and bring that selection to the Board of Selectmen for their ratification.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification, wouldn't that appointment be an appointment by the town administrator?
It would, yeah.
Okay.
It would technically be, the committee is going to help do the review of the search, and then appointment by the town administrator, and then a ratification or endorsement by the board, or as a department head position would require the board to review of that appointment.
But technically, you make the appointment, and the board, from notification, the Board of Selectmen has 2 weeks
Yes.
to reject that appointment.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
HR Director update?
Again, just briefly to let the board know, myself and Dr. Meyer from the school department, we're doing interviews this week for that position. We're hoping to finish up early next week, the interviews. If we are comfortable with the people we're seeing, hopefully by next meeting, if we can, the expectation is that it will give you by the next elected meeting, which is 3 weeks. It'll give us time to bring a candidate forward at that meeting there to move forward with that appointment. So I appreciate the work that the review committee did. There were about 160 applications, So we had a review committee that narrowed that down to 12, which was a huge task. And I think out of that 12, they've really gotten some specific qualified, experienced people. So I think we'll have a good choice out of those people that we have there. So at least that process is almost coming towards the end. I know it's been a lengthy process and further delayed these past months. And my hope was to be able to conduct, since we've kind of waited for the lockdown, to conduct some interviews in person, but a lot of the candidates are also asking if it could be done remotely based on the current situation still. So we're offering people to come in if they wish, but we're also doing the ones that tomorrow, tomorrow we have some set up that will be remote. So then, but definitely, I think my opinion is before the final person gets appointed, we're going to need to meet them in person and really kind of get a feeling that they're going to work with our organization. It's a good fit for our organization.
Sure.
So hopefully we're close.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, again, I just want to clarify that at our next meeting, you'll be notifying us of the appointment of the HR director, and we will have the opportunity to reject that or not at the next meeting.
I just want to add to commend Mike. I know it's been a long process, but that's great news on both of those searches, which I think both of those positions, especially human resources one, is going to be vital. But it's also great news that we have a lot of applicants for the cable executive director position. That position is going to go a long way too. So I just want to thank Mike for all his hard work.
Thank you.
Moving on. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I had a question for you. So, with regard to our previous discussion about the couple of subcommittees that I had discussed with you, is that coming later, or is that?
I was going to do those under committee reports. When we get
There you go.
All right. Goals and objectives. Ed, you had spoken to me offline about.
This is a very long meeting, so my intent is not to go through goals and objectives right now, because I know that takes a very long time.
I thought you had a good idea for a new format.
Well, what I just want to introduce to the board and have them consider is a little bit more detailed approach to goals and objectives, and breaking them into short-term, medium-term, long-term goals. And depending on how we categorize those different goals, that dictates the frequency with which we get updated at the meeting. So that way there'll just be a spreadsheet that we can refer to that will force us to be reminded of certain things that I think just in the past, for no one's fault, but sometimes things fall off the radar.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we had a living document like that we would constantly update and would just force us, we would just know say every 3 meetings are the medium term goals. We just know that we're going to get an update on that. We can prepare for it. So it's really just still having the goals and objectives, but just doing it with a more detail oriented approach. And that's really the proposal. I've been on here for a year, and it's just like one of the things I think that would probably help us out in the long term.
I like the idea too. So if everyone's comfortable and you wanted to think for the next meeting, if everybody wants to, come up with a long-term, medium-term, and a short-term goal that you'd like to have considered, and I'd even be favor, like if you tick that short-term off early and you want to put another one on there, I'm fine with that too. So I appreciate the idea, and if it's okay with the board, maybe we can try that on the second.
Yeah, I can try to come up with a template to send out to everyone before the next meeting as well. And then we can, if we have some time at either the next meeting or a subsequent meeting, we can have discussions about where we think fits where. And part of it too, I think, would be kind of identifying responsible departments and people for some of those goals and objectives as well.
Okay.
Just want to say I'm supportive of Ed's suggestions going forward.
Terrific.
And Mr. Chair, just to point out for our newest member, that on that summary sheet that I gave the board tonight, it does list the current goals that the board had set up last year. So those what we're currently working on, and certainly some of those can be carried forward, or new ideas or new projects come up, or as Mr. Dolph indicated, we could combine those or put them in different categories. I think it's a good idea as well too, and then we can know where to focus our attention. So at least you have the background of what we've been talking about.
Thank you. Thank you. Committee reports. Any committee reports?
Mr. Chairman, for the last couple of weeks, I've been working with Mr. Kittredge, Town Treasurer, okay, right? We're getting together a list. He's contacted the Zekas Group, which I believe is Shrewsbury, okay? We're trying to get it. We have approximately 8 pieces of property. We have title for we can sell, okay? 2 of the properties up on Lindbergh Street we can't because of the title. There was a problem with the paperwork. But at least 8 of them we're going to be able to sell, and we're hoping for sometime in September. I should know before the next meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Kovas had some proposed new committees.
Sure. So one of them would be a short-term committee, subcommittee. I was looking to establish a Savage Little League Field Lighting Subcommittee, basically to work with facilities to create a tentative timeline for installation and the completion of the project. And secondly, to ensure the resources are available to meet the established timeline. It would basically, in short, it would provide some oversight to the project itself to ensure that it gets done in a
Mr. Chairman, how would that proposed subcommittee overlap with the responsibilities of the Permanent Building Committee?
That was
which
my
is the oversight board for
question
any of these projects.
when we spoke about this. So, yeah, I don't. That's Matt and I spoke about this before, and I just wanted the whole board to hear the stuff, because that was my question too.
Mm-hmm.
If we're just creating another layer of to go through, if the Permanent Building Committee is going to have to sign off on everything anyway.
They're responsible for the oversight, for the approval of the contracts, of the design and engineering. I just don't know how this subcommittee would interface with their responsibility under the bylaw. Is it an advisory committee to the Permanent Building Committee?
To full disclosure, I mean, I didn't know, I'm not really sure what the criteria is for projects to go into. I mean, certainly everything that the facilities director is in charge of, he has some leeway to make decisions himself.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even sure if this project qualified to get into that building committee.
$50,000 is the
Okay,
threshold.
all right. So I didn't even, I plead ignorance. I didn't even know that this automatically got moved into that building committee.
Right.
So if there is already, if that's already going to be oversight on that process, then yeah, I don't know. I guess that changes things a little bit. I don't know if is there. I mean, Matt's obviously he's interested in seeing that project through. Would he have the ability to be appointed a member of that committee? Are selectmen sometimes on that committee? I don't know.
It's appointed, actually, the committee's appointed. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, please.
The committee's actually appointed by the town moderator.
And it's my understanding, it predates me obviously, but that there used to be individual project committees, and we went this route as a way to get professionals
Consistency and professional management, but there's absolutely no reason why a representative of, see, the problem is, are you representing the Little League or the town of Clinton? As an advisor, or just a person that has the opportunity to give input to the building committee?
I mean, first and foremost, it would be representative of the town of Clinton, I think, to ensure that the project gets done in a timely manner based upon if it lags, it rolls into the following, into the following spring, then it basically inhibits the park from potentially being used.
Mr. Chair, this potential building committee that gets appointed by the town moderator, would you, in your opinion, Selectman Conley, would it be normal for, would
It
there
already
be?
exists. It's a permanent.
No. Oh, it's a permanent, it already, the members are already formed.
Responsibility is for
Okay.
any capital project over $50,000.
Okay.
Is under their jurisdiction.
So
Alright.
and the facility manager is basically the admin support for the permanent building committee. But I'm trying to, in my mind, create a structure where there's nobody on the permanent building committee that has a strong background in the exact issue of baseball field lighting.
I believe there is, though. I think if my father's still on there, that would be,
I mean, I think that's the overall goal, is to get representation on that committee that would advocate for the Savage Field and Little League.
the timeline.
And
Essentially
the timeline, but
of
like,
any
yeah, right,
project,
but, right, to make sure that there's somebody on that subcommittee that has kind of like that interest, in mind. So if there is somebody already on that building committee that's knowledgeable, has a little bit of the history of what's been going on down there, maybe we're all set.
How about, I make a motion that we request the facility director and the permanent building committee to be aware of the Board of Selectmen's concern that the project be completed expeditiously and be available for league use next year. I mean, is that, if we ask the town administrator to make sure that the facility director and the permanent building committee is aware that it's this board's desire that project move forward expeditiously.
Absolutely, and Mr. Chair, the committee is required to post their meetings publicly, so they're all open. They act in kind of a round table informal manner. I mean, they're professionals that do their job, but anyone that wants to attend would be willing to get input and discuss things, so you can certainly go to the meeting. But I will certainly bring that forward. As Mr. Conley indicated, the town moderator appoints, and there's 5 members that the town moderator appoints, and there's ex officio of the superintendent of schools and the town administrator, only to, again, oversee that things on the town and school side, big projects are going in the direction that the selectmen or school committee intended. So certainly, anyone, will be there, but anyone else can attend and give that input during those sessions.
Well, the intent of the motion is to make, I had forgotten that you were an ex officio member, so to make you aware to represent this board's strong desire to make sure that project moves forward, because they've already suffered. Everybody's suffering in this COVID thing, but the league, all the sports leagues next year are hopefully going to be anxious to get going, and we don't want them hung up by this not being completed in a timely manner. And the burden of getting it done is the facility director's job. It's the building committee's job to supervise and oversee it. And the facility director works directly for the town administrator. So hopefully this motion expresses our concern to you, and you'll follow through and make sure.
And I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
And then just one last one. During the campaign, I know there were citizens that were able to write questions into the candidates when we had our Meet the Candidates evening that Civic had put on. And the image of Clinton was one category that was common. And I would like to propose starting an image advisory subcommittee that would essentially look at both the social image of Clinton as well as the physical image of Clinton. The purpose would be to assess and reflect on the image as it pertains to the community from within the community, and essentially come up with different ways to help improve Clinton's image in a positive way.
If I can make a comment on that, I'm very supportive of what Matt just said. I think we have a subcommittee.
Well, that's what we,
Communications and Marketing Committee, and it sounds like he's volunteering for that
We
subcommittee.
did,
Walk right into that one.
we did address that. I'm willing to, that's one of the things we said too, like, we'll have to see, I'm willing to let him run with this and see how they mesh, and if we're overlapping, then maybe we'll, unite the tribes, but, yeah, the more help we can get, the better, so.
So you prefer to set up a separate committee?
I don't mind, yeah.
Oh, fine.
Yeah, I have to,
But I think Matt should serve on the Marketing and Communications Committee, if there's an opening there.
I'm open, if there is.
I agree with Selectman Cobus that is a good idea. I do also agree there could be some overlap with
Yeah.
marketing, although I do think and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but it sounds like he's talking about more like, kind of like physical, not so much construction, but like appearance, cleanliness, cosmetic appearance of the town, whereas marketing is I think maybe part of that, but marketing is more of, advertising, getting Clinton's best foot forward out there. So I do think that there's some overlap, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having that be, and we could even possibly have some joint committee
That's what I was
meetings
thinking,
together.
once we
so.
see where, we're
Yeah.
involved up.
Sounds like another volunteer for the new
He's already,
subcommittee.
I'm already on it. You already put me on that one.
On this new one, no.
Oh, on the new one? Yeah, he's on that one by himself.
Speaking of which, I'll share at the next meeting just appointments. I know Mr. Jaconski left some holes, so if anybody is now, there was one question I had. On the list I had tax title property twice, but I think one of them is like surplus property.
Right,
You're
one
on
was
both.
surplus property, which was looking at
Tax title.
all town properties in order to
Okay.
see whether or not they be reused or disposed of.
Right.
And there's also the tax title property, which the town treasurer, as an advisor
Right.
to auctioning, as Mr. Busno spoke earlier, about auctioning tax title property that was taken through the tax title process. So one is to support the treasurer, the other is on behalf of the Board of Selectmen to look at towns.
I think
all
Mike was
town
on the
property.
surplus one, so there's an opening there, and there's an opening on Christmas lighting. If anybody has any interest in this stuff, please let me know, but I'll get this list typed up for our next meeting. I think that is the end of our scheduled agenda. We're going into executive session for 3 separate issues under Article 3 of the Open Meeting Law. So remind me, do we take a motion to move in? I know we have to do a roll call.
Don't we just do a roll call?
We won't be returning into open session.
Right, yeah.
So
Just
this
be in and out for each one for roll call, and that there won't be, just to inform the public, there
We
won't
won't
be
be coming
any
back.
formal business done at the end of those sessions, so
Great.
it'll be just a motion to adjourn at that point.
Roll call, Mr. Cobus?
Say aye.
Aye. Sorry. Mr. Busno?
Aye.
The chair is aye.
Aye.
Mr. Conley?
Ed DeVault, aye.
Thank you. Have a great night.